All right, welcome. Today is Wednesday, February 25th, 2026. The time is now promptly 4 p.m. I'm going to open this council special session. The purpose of this special session is to consider adoption of an ordinance for a general service fee and referral of that ordinance to the voter approval. The general service fee is proposed to be used for the general fund, staffing programs and service for police, library, parks, recreation, community development, administration, information technology, and municipal court. So the discussion, this item, this agenda item is to discuss ordinance 3321 and ordinance 3332 to determine whether council would like to adopt the general service fee. If so, what amount of the fee to adopt and to refer to the voters. So we actually are going to have three different pieces of this. And A is a presentation by our city administrator, John Walsh. Then we're going to have public comment of 3 minutes or less per speaker, and then council deliberation. So with that, can you
start with?
Actually,
Sure. Yeah. Before we get started, good afternoon, Mayor and councilors. So before we get started, I wanted to take a moment to address conflicts of interest. Today, as you outlined, we're going to be discussing the adoption of a fee that will be referred to the voters. And so I am going to go through the discussion of an actual conflict of interest and a potential conflict of interest and what a public official must do if they are met with either of those cases. In this case, no matter what type of relationship a public official has to this fee, this ordinance before us, a public official can only have a potential conflict of interest because this ordinance is going to be referred to the voters. And so any actual benefit or detriment is unknown, any actual financial benefit or detriment unknown at this time, because the voters, it will be then referred to the voters to then make a final decision on the measure. That being said, I'm still going to go through some of the background, and then I will ask you if you have a potential or actual conflict of interest. So a public official is met with a conflict of interest when participating in official actions, such as a discussion or deliberation or a vote on a matter, which could result in a financial benefit or a financial detriment to the public official, a relative of a public official, or a business with which the person, the public official or a relative is associated with. So again, there are two types of conflicts of interest, an actual and a potential. An actual conflict of interest exists when the action taken by a public official would affect the financial interest of the official or the official's relative or a business with which the official or the relative is associated with. And a potential conflict of interest exists when an action or a decision could have a financial benefit or detriment to the public official or a relative or a business with which that official is associated with. Now, there are two exceptions so when there is an actual conflict of interest, a public official must disclose that actual conflict of interest and then not participate in the discussion or the vote of that matter. When there is a potential conflict of interest, a public official must disclose that they have a potential conflict of interest and explain what that potential conflict of interest is, but then they are free to discuss and then vote on the matter. There's two exceptions for when a public official is met with an actual conflict of interest about how they can participate. So if a public official's vote is necessary to meet a requirement of a quorum to take official action, then they are not allowed to participate in the discussion, but they may vote. One exception. A second exception, and this was just recently adopted by the legislature in 2025, it provides that if the official action is the adoption of a local budget that provides compensation or benefits to the public official or a relative of the public official, that public official may participate in any discussion or debate on the budget item and vote on that item. Now, those are two exceptions to when a public official is met with an actual conflict of interest that would allow them to both discuss, in some cases, and vote. We don't have any of those situations here. Here, we're talking about adoption of an ordinance that will then be referred to the voters. So as I said, and I confirmed this with the Ethics Commission, anytime a public official is taking action that refers a matter to the voters, there is not an actual conflict of interest. There is only if a potential conflict of interest. And in that case, as we talked about, when there's a potential conflict of interest, if there is one, the public official must disclose that potential conflict of interest, and then they are free to participate. In this case, in just reviewing this is a fee for general fund services. I thought out of the abundance of caution, city councilors do receive stipends that are de minimis. And so that could create arguably a potential conflict of interest in this case. And so it would be my recommendation that you could disclose a potential conflict of interest as a result of your counselor stipend. And then you are free to discuss and vote on this matter. So does anybody have any questions to what I just discussed? So at this time, I'm going to ask each counselor or all the counselors if they wish to declare a potential or actual conflict of interest on the general services fee item that we're discussing today. And I'll say that what a disclosure would look like is I would like to disclose a potential conflict of interest related to the general services fee discussion because I'm a city councilor and I receive a stipend from the city or something of that nature.
I'll start. So I want to declare a potential conflict of interest as I do receive a stipend as the mayor and on this council and as it relates to the general service fee and the budget. I also, even though don't need to, I'm going to also state a actual conflict for the record. And this is relation to my spouse being employed by the city of St. Helens as a police officer. Because the budget includes compensation and benefits for city positions, I'm announcing this is an actual conflict. Under ORS 244120, as amended by Senate Bill 983, Oregon Laws 2025, Chapter 466, I may participate in vote on adoption of budget after making the disclosure. I'm keeping consistent with that. And so I'm just going to that as an actual, just out of abundance of caution as well.
Would anybody else like to declare a potential conflict of
I will
interest?
declare a potential conflict there. I can't recall what you said, but what you said.
Potential conflict of interest related to the general service fee.
I will also declare a potential conflict of interest related to the general service fee due to the stipend because of the city council.
As stated.
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you, Ashley, for going through that. We appreciate it. Okay, are we okay to move on?
Yep.
All right. John, are you ready to talk about
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So we're here today to talk about the proposed general service fee and the two resolutions prepared to be referred to the voters on May 19th. This general service fee will fund police, library, parks, recreation, community development, administration, information technology, and municipal court services. At your February 4th meeting at the council work session, staff forecasted budget shortfall around $2.2 million. If services are to be maintained at the current level, this was initially presented, and I presented this as without adjustment, the general fund will be negative by 150. So that 2.2 million represents is getting back to our 20%, the council's adopted 20% target for balance. So maintain a healthy balance. It's for not just nice. We presented at that meeting, St. Helens has a permanent tax rate that is one of the lowest in the state. Many communities, even those with higher tax rates, have referred ballot measures to voters to fund these types of desired services. You look around, you'll see, particularly in this climate where many cities are struggling, school districts are struggling, that there's trying to implement these. Gloria at our last meeting also shared the pros and cons versus using property taxes versus the adoption of a levy. And we learned about that as far as not all revenue, property tax revenues imposed can be collected, and the general service fee was a more equitable distribution of that. The services. How did we get here? You know, several reasons. I think we've all talked about this ad nauseum about the city has been relying on one-time revenues to fill our budget gaps, to keep that level of service elevated, and that's, you know, we've been fortunate enough to receive, you know, federal grants and state grants, and, you know, had timber to cut and properties to sell, and, you know, those are all good to keep those service levels up, but they're at a point where we can't, we don't have another property to sell, and timber doesn't grow fast enough, so we need revenue to keep our services going at the current levels. At the February 4th meeting, council directed staff to come back with 2 fee proposals, one at the full rate of what it would take to maintain current service levels, and the second lesser option that would maintain some services and also required service reductions to align with those available revenues. Both those measures would require voter or all of the scenarios presented, so. At the February 11th meeting, council work session staff presented the 2 ordinances, one at the higher amount and one at the lower. Ordinance 3321, the $35.30 general service fee that would allow maintaining staffing, programs and service at the current levels and the reserve, and then ordinance 3322, a $24 general service fee, and that would require some reductions in services, but also strive to hit that 20% target safety net. At February 11th meeting, council approved the first reading for both ordinances. Allows us to carry forward to this meeting to have that discussion of which is appropriate. They want to refer to the voters, so. Under either scenario, there's a 10-year term starting in July 1. The budget committee will evaluate the fee after 5 years to determine whether it recommends the city continue to charge the fee. The fee will be charged on utility bills for developed property based on the number of equivalent dwelling units. One house equals one unit, a duplex has 2, and so on. The fee will be indexed annually, but won't increase more than 3% per year based off CPI. The general service fee revenues and expenditures will be recorded in a dedicated ledger account. The city will provide quarterly reports to the city council that document the general service fee revenue and expenditures. City's annual audit will include a review of the collection and use of the general service fund. And revenues from the municipal service fee that are collected on an ongoing monthly basis are not subject to the Measure 5 property tax compression. So it's in that fee versus tax comparison that we did. Kathy's going to put up some graphs that we put together just to represent how small the general fund is relative to the rest of the city's $92 million budget. It's the most attention because it doesn't have rates and fees and things of that nature. You see that enterprise funds, which is our water, sewer, and storm funds, represent about 38% of the budget. So funds 13%. You know, we have between enterprise funds and capital projects. That's a pretty good chunk of the city's budget there. So, and the special revenue funds, the other tourism, community development, and things. So here's another graph that is total general fund budget is 12.3 million. Half of that is police. Library, finance, recreation, planning. One last graph here. That's charges for services is franchise fees from our cable and natural gas, and that's represents that slice. Local, yeah, you'll see local taxes are only about 15%. So have any questions about that or?
No, I just want to make sure that I'm clear. So we have we're talking about overall city budget of a little over $92 million. And that entire budget in itself for the city has about 16 funds with it, right? Within it, in the budget. And we are talking only about the general fund, which makes up about 13% of the entire $92+ million budget, correct? So we're talking about one fund that we're struggling with versus the enterprise funds are healthy. Everything else is healthy. So like there's a perception out there that the city is going bankrupt and that there's all these issues. We cannot transfer funds out of the enterprise fund and put it in the general fund. We have swim lanes, right, where these funds have revenue coming in and they have to be spent on those items. So you can't just pull money from the enterprise fund and put it in the general fund, correct?
That is correct.
So we have 16 funds. We're talking about only the general fund, which has the essential services like police, library, planning, IT, parks, those type of things. Police are roughly 50% of the general fund or 5.99% of the entire city budget of 92 million. Am I understanding this from a high level?
Yeah. you did.
Okay, so that's what we're dealing with. Not all of the funds. We're dealing with 1 out of 16, the general service fund that happens to fund the essential services or a lot of essential services for our city. We have limited revenue sources that can be used to fund that. Correct? I just want to make sure I'm not misspeak. Okay. That makes sense, Counselor Sundin? Because it gets, I think, a little bit discombobulated when we start talking about all of the different funds and we're not talking about the entire budget. We're talking about one fund to service these essential components or items in the general fund services. Okay.
So you're down to the options and alternatives. Basically, you have 3 options. You can vote for the higher fee, the lower fee, or decline to take any action. Either ordinance is approved, the next step will be to, for the city council to review it, to discuss the resolutions, which are also included in this packet, and with those resolutions, approve the ballot title and explanatory statement, and direct the elections official to take all necessary steps to refer the fee to the voters. And this is a matter that's fairly timely that we want to. And we're going to make the May 19th ballot. So we're looking for a decision today here.
What's today or it doesn't go on the ballot, right? I mean, how does that be?
Yeah, well, this,
Right.
we have to have,
So it's not an option either. We do it today or we don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
or we wait till November.
You have anything else, John? Will you go?
Staff report that was in the packet. Covered right here, those slides show a lot of it.
And that, did you say that the general fund is about 13% of the entire city budget of the 92 million?
That's what the slides we just looked at showed us.
All right, does anybody else have anything? Counselor Hubbard, Counselor Gunderson? Okay, that means that it looks like we can move into public comment. So, get my, oh, I don't know where my little script is. Yeah, it's not us yet. Make sure that we're official and consistent. Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate it. Continuity and consistency. All right. Now's the time for visitor comments. A visitor comment period is an essential part of the local government meetings. Please address your comments to the mayor and council members. The city council will take all input into consideration. Please limit your share to 3 minutes or less. In observance of Oregon open meeting laws, this isn't a time for dialogue, but rather a time for us to listen to you. Responses to visitor comment, if needed, will be published in the next city council regular session packet. Please provide contact information on the sign of the sheet in the back of the room. And when you come up, please state your name for the record and keep it.
May I ask one question before we start the time?
Yeah, just a second, 3 minute and keep it 3 minutes or less and go, what's the question?
Okay, I wanted to ask, since this is a public meeting and for public opinions, if you are going to limit me to speaking only about ordinance 3321.
Typically, the special session is, the public comment is limited to ordinance 3321. But
Well, I want to address that too, but I had one other comment. And I can do it in 3 minutes.
there is no restriction. It's a request to limit it, but
I think
no
it's,
restriction.
I think it's your 3 minutes and say whatever you want.
Okay, fine. My name is Nancy Whitney. First I want to commend the city on the beautiful river turnaround and rock masonry that added to the downtown area. And then, since my taxes help pay for this project, I strongly want to object to all the business signs set up in the same area, thereby destroying the enhanced view we have of all of this. If businesses want to set up signs, they need to do so in front of their business. My tax dollar did not pay for their free advertisement. Additionally, I want to ask if this council is aware that Portland illegally attempted to add additional money to the water bill to pay for their shortcomings just a couple or so years ago, and ended up having to refund millions of dollars to the citizens of Portland, plus interest. I strongly advise you rethink this project of adding additional money to our water bills and discontinue paying yourselves $80,000 a year for voluntary positions as counselors. Thank you.
Okay, next public comment.
Tammy Magra. The records released per the court's recent ruling in Toski versus St. Helens are a lesson of how the public's money gets wasted when there are a lack of ethics. The text between Greenway and Dylan Gaston, who is an officer in the police association, are that the police refused to work 8-hour schedules. This resulted in the department being short-staffed. It takes more officers working a 10-hour shift to cover a 24-hour schedule as opposed to officers working an 8-hour schedule. Dylan Gaston, in his text to Chief Greenway, essentially stated that the officers are refusing to work an 8-hour schedule, even though they have a contract to work a 24-hour schedule. Dylan Gaston said that a 10-hour schedule allows the officers 2 days off of work. Police are very expensive in salary and equipment. Also very expensive are police pensions. So expanding the police department to the pleasure of employees of the department is not an efficient use of public funds. To quote Jim Bann in his executive summary, police departments are supposed to use the money given to them to do their best to protect the public. Jim Bann, an expert in police departments and a former chief himself, stated that he considered the methods used by Greenway and the Police Association to be malfeasance. St. Helens budget documents show that in 4 years leading to this 23-24 budget, the City Council and the St. Helens Budget Committee raised the budget of the police department a total of 86.1%. In the budget year 23-24, the St. Helens City Council and the Budget Committee raised the police budget from $4 million to more than $6 million, a 25.1% increase. 7 months later, Dylan Gaston, in his capacity and as executive officer of the Police Association in January 24, along with the president of the Police Association, Brian Cutright, came before the City Council in a special session and untruthfully stated that the city of St. Helens was defunding the police. After getting an 86.1% increase over 4 years and a 25.1% increase, they came to council and lied and misrepresented to the public that the city was defunding the police when in fact the city was overfunding the police. Later, Brian Cutright was fired from the St. Helens Police Department for violating the constitutional rights of a citizen and then lying about it. Brian Cutright was operating in an environment of no ethics. He was a man who thought he could do and say anything. He shamed his badge, he shamed his department, he lost his job because the police are supposed to be honest. This officer, Dylan Gaston, who lied to council, is still part of the police union. In fact, he has been promoted to sergeant under Massey. Dylan Gaston's department stopped working and put our entire community in danger to help get Jennifer Massey elected. Why did the police union want Massey elected? To raise taxes, to get them, her and her husband, more money, to continue the unethical and dishonest dealings of the police and the police association, to enrich himself, to enrich her. This water tax is part of that unethical plan. It was promoted, invented, and forwarded by Massey, who does not have an ethical bone in her body. Thank you.
Next public comment, please.
Brady Brian. You didn't mention the other conflict that you have is that you're a mob boss. And along with all of the actual conflicts and corruption that go along with that title and the collusion that you considered with the police union. So yeah, that's an actual conflict. I noticed that you in your packet, you put out two budgets according to your finance director. And of course, there are three options here. So at a minimum, you would need three budgets. That's just simple math. The reason that she doesn't say that she needs three budgets versus two is because we already know what you're going to do. You're going to pass the 3321 ordinance for the higher amount. She knows it. We all know it. You're just playing around with it. You're going to do that. Of course, your finance director is not trustworthy. She's lied on the record multiple times about tourism and has failed to correct the record for that. And when you have given the opportunity to correct the record about lying, she doesn't. She also fraudulently, along with the five of you, put $300,000 in your budget to receive from tourism, which you knew and you've published that you knew you weren't going to get. That's fraud. Had you had that money, we wouldn't be facing the budget crisis this financial period. In addition, I'd like to know why you're having this meeting at 4 o'clock? So that no one can attend? Is that why you decided to do that? I think that that's a big part of it. Finally, the records released from the Toski versus the city release of the public records shows a lot of collusion. Let's make sure you understand that in January, Dylan Gaston is just one of the issues that was said, that he stated the council had defunded the police. And then they said, oh, regarding Rick and John, they're toast. They're going to get pushed out, and I'm going to make sure of it. Fuck them both. They can go and be unemployed losers like Tina and Brady. That is a statement from, I think he's the second ranking officer in your police department. Now tell me how it is that you sat here and you think that that's okay. That someone that has been sworn, that they're telling you that they're going to get rid of the mayor, which they did, and John. John somehow must be the smartest person here because he's managed to keep his job. But you got rid of Hogue. Was that because Hogue wouldn't have put up with this crap? And you knew that Chief Smith would tolerate it? Explain to me how it is that this officer continues to be employed by the city of St. Helens.
Graham, your time is up, please.
I think your time is up.
Please, your time is up. And also before you. So also, for the record, the city disagrees about the defamatory
Now
statement.
you're violating ethics as well.
Preheim,
You don't make comments
Mr.
back to
Preheim.
public comments. Did you read the
Right.
statement? Do I need to
Mr.
read it
Preheim,
again?
your statement is over.
Yeah, and so was yours. You do comment back to.
Mr. Preheim, I am stating.
Not comment back.
I am stating.
Mr. Preheim, the mayor has the ability to comment after a public
Why
comment.
don't you
if he
read your
wants.
statement? Your statements say that they do not do that, that you do
Preheim.
not respond to public.
I am not responding to your public comment. I am making a comment after the record that says the city disagrees with the defamatory statement that was made about our finance
That
director.
is responding.
Mr.
That's just a
President,
matter
I'm
of.
asking you nicely to refrain from
I'm
comment.
asking you nicely not to lie.
If you continue, I'm going to have to ask you to leave because you're disrupting this meeting. I am making a statement to clarify the record.
And I'll be happy to.
Mr. Preheim, I'm asking you nicely. I'm correcting the record about the defamatory statements that were made about our finance director. The city disagrees with those comments. Thank you. Next public comment.
Robin Toski, City of St. Helens. Thank you for talking about ethics, Ashley, and clarifying in the context of the side-by-sides where Jennifer said no one in her family has them. It's not hers. She has no conflict of interest, even though she was championing the law. I do think ethics matter, and I know Oregon has pretty loose ethics laws as far as voting on these things, and I understand this will go before the voters to, I think, make a good decision. I'm confident of it. But I just think allowing someone who has this very apparent and obvious conflict of interest is a big problem. She continues to spread false propaganda about high crime, fear and panic, our citizens using fear mongering to pass this levy and say she just wants the police bigger. Ethics matter. Just saying, Brandon, Jessica, Russ, Mark, it's up to you to make sure the conflict doesn't exist when handling the money, and keep your eyes open when she sways you guys like she swayed you all against Chief Hogue. It requires you to speak up. The mayor has proven she has no ethics in in the words of our city attorney, and I quote, she schemed and connived. I'm hoping you have had a chance to read the very lengthy records the band report and communications released last week. The depth of the corruption is shocking. It's very obvious why the mayor denied and lied about them. Why are we here today at special session to discuss whether the council should read into place on the ballot a tax upon your property in the form of a water fee? You opted to use a water bill to make sure all the households would be taxed equally. So you say conveniently, this tax requires a 50% approval, and the other tax that you contemplated needs a 2/3 majority approval. Then you dangle the free money for the people that can't afford to pay the increase. This translates to the working class folks carrying the freight for everyone. I do not support the tax. No more taxes. Sharpen your pencils. I commend Councilor Hubbard for a statement that mismanagement of government funds and how to control them needs to be a part of the discussion. I commend Councilor President Chilton for her statements of the commitment that eliminating mismanagement of people's money will be part of the budget committee discussion. I would love to congratulate my husband, Steve Toski, for the tremendous victory is won for our people and the council to dislodge for the public review and examinations of records concerning the investigation into former Chief Greenway, the Police Association, and Jennifer Massey. This report paid 100% by taxpayer dollars. As someone who grew up in St. Helens, I believe this town is full of good people where most people do the right thing. It's called pride, and ethics do matter.
Okay, next public comment, please.
Stephen Toski, City of St. Helens. I am going to rejoin my wife's comments and commend Councilor Hubbard for saying that management of the expenses needs to be part of the discussion. Councilor Chilton saying that these discussions are coming forward during the budget committee meetings that we have. And I don't think that this council really appreciated the kind of activities that were going on behind the scenes by the police on many different levels to try to induce the council of continuing to increase the police budget year in, year out, 86.1% over 4 years. And then to have the police association come forward to the council, say they have a lack of confidence in John Walsh and a lack of confidence in Rick Scholl because they're defunding the police. And when you read the information that has come forward, you see that this ethical issues were not just limited to the money, they're limited to the unwillingness of our police department to help other police departments, even when officers' lives were in danger for many years. And so when we're talking about mismanagement of money, we've got to be thinking about what has been going on in our department to manage the exceptional amount of money that we've been paying over many years. And we're going to be relying upon our chief to help us figure that out. And I'm going to underscore that within this, these documents were that Sergeant Smith at the time was ordered by Greenway to meet with Massey and to conduct a politically motivated persecution of our tourism department for the purposes of removing John Walsh from office. And our Sergeant Smith stated orally and in writing about how he feared retaliation. He went ahead and did it. And so the only reason we know this is because of Joe Hogue, who was retaliated against. I've asked our chief, I'll let you know, stay as far away from our mayor as he can, because she definitely has an actual conflict of interest. And we're going to be looking forward, or hopefully his honest advice. But he's got a lot on his plate and he's got his arm behind his back. So looking forward to some discussions about what we do with this money in relationship with the other departments in the future. Best wishes on figuring out which one of these levers you want. Thank you.
Public, please.
Hello, my name is Shauna Strop Harrison. This whole situation has become very embarrassing. I don't know if you guys realize how absolutely embarrassing it is to be a member of this community at this juncture in time. Everything down here seems to be discourse based on vendetta and whatever it is, and I want no part of it at all. I come here as a citizen. I come here as a person who works in the community. I am a local realtor. It's a major concern for anybody buying homes to buy homes, knowing that you guys are doing this basically what a lot of people have defined as taxation without representation. It's very concerning about the reality that it may end up being a situation where you guys are going to have to return the money, you know, considering your guys's your guys' track record. It's not really awesome in regards to what we got going on in regards to the suing and the lawsuits and all. I mean, I can't even keep up. I have no game in this. I don't want any part of it. I have no side to pick. I think it's all rotten to the core, to be quite honest with you. You guys all get money now sitting up here on council, which is a stark comparison to what it was like beforehand. It's not that I don't value your time up here and think that you should get some kind of, compensation. However, I think it's real rich considering the times and the budget cuts that everybody else is making in their own homes. I'm not going to have this carrot held over my head over what we're going to cut. Something's going to be cut. Somebody's going to make a cut along the way because there's cuts that have to come, obviously. I'm super concerned that you guys have continued to fire the alarm in regards to the sewer and the stormwater system already being, haphazard at best. I don't know how we're going to continue to put money on this bill to fund the police and then fund the actual systems that water bill is supposed to service. You guys don't like me coming down here any more than I like coming down here. I mean, I had to, push a client away so I could hurry up and come down here. And I was going to speak on Zoom, but let's be honest, it hits a little different when I'm here physically, just like anybody else, a couple questions. We're a wholesale Columbia City is a wholesale consumer of our water should they need it. Are we going to be increasing their fees? What is the alternative if this doesn't pass? I think that needs to be spoken and that needs to be talked about, because the bills are going to continue to come regardless. Again, the sewer storm, I just touched on that. That is absolutely something you all should be care and concerned about. I don't understand why we're not putting it up as a bond for the property tax. Why that is beyond me, because not everybody gets city water and city sewer, and especially because we really do need our city water and city sewer, which is already high, and we already got a fee going there to cover that. So, I don't know. I really hope that you guys can figure something out because you guys have a complete lack of trust within the community when I speak to people abroad on all sides of the fence.
Thank you. Next public comment. Do we have anybody online? Okay. All right. So that puts us into council deliberation and discussion. We have like so many things that we can talk about here. Does anybody want to start? I think it would be helpful to try to discuss some of the comments that came up and if it's relevant to this in public comment, which is about the PDX illegal water tax. Because my understanding is that was it's not illegal. And what happened in Portland, and actually, I don't know if you're able to look into that at all, but what happened in Portland was it wasn't being used for what it was said to be used. And it does come up quite a bit. People say it's illegal. It's not illegal. A lot of cities in Oregon are using. Can you speak to that at all?
I can just provide some basic information and then I would like the opportunity to provide additional information later, but some of the basic information that I can find is that in 2017, there was a lawsuit related to improper spending of water and sewer funds. And so that is not related to fees, like an additional fee on the water bill, but it was related to water and sewer funds that were supposed to be used on water and sewer as designated funds, but they were used other ways for other funds. Example, maybe transferred to other funds, similar to, we were talking earlier about how the cities have swim lanes. In this case, it appears that in this 2017 issue, the city was using its water and sewer funds to shore up other funds that had problems. That was in 2017, the city settled that issue. And then in 2025, I can see that the Water Bureau, it looks like they may have overcharged customers. So maybe there was a fee and there was overbilling. And therefore they had to recalculate, they had to evaluate all of their billing and then recalculate and refund the amounts that were overbilled. So those are the two issues that I see. We'll take another look at it.
Is that something, do you think that even though we're in a special session, that could be on our clearing the confusion or something on, because that is something that comes up quite a bit, or people think that it's illegal because that's what people said out in the public. Is there any way we could provide more context?
Sure. And I think just there's a question about, I think now you're also raising a question about whether these fees on the utility bill are legal and proper.
Correct.
And what I'll say is that in many cases, in most cases in municipalities in Oregon, city councils are authorized to adopt fees as a city council without referring them to the voters. And so those are instances when the ways those fees were adopted were challenged. And depending on the language of how those fees were adopted, I think there was some successful challenge and also unsuccessful challenge, because adopting these municipal service fees is allowed if you do it in a certain way. In this case, the city council is not adopting the fee on its own. The city is approving a fee to be referred to the voters. So in any of those questions where people are challenging whether it's lawful to adopt these types of fees, it's when the city council approves them or adopts them without referring them to the voters.
Actually, so I'm correct that we are only voting to refer it to the ballot so the voters can make a decision.
Is correct. The way the ordinance is written is only effective after it receives voter approval. And so the city council is today, they can adopt the ordinance, which is only effective conditional upon voter approval. And then the city council is referring that matter to the voters for approval.
So
That's why that's.
we had a public comment, and I love it when she comes down. She made a comment about taxation without representation, right? But in essence, the voters are voting on this. Council is not voting on it. Does not pass if the voters. So whether it was a levy, a bond, or a fee, the voters are actually going to make the decision whether they adopt it or not.
That's correct.
Okay. And I think that's some of the challenge, right? Because there is, my pins are dead. It's, but with those type of thoughts out there, like it's good, I think, to clarify those. Okay. I think that was the only relevant ones that I picked out for this discussion, but I did want to have a more broad budget discussion too. So I don't know if everybody else would like to, or we're just ready to talk about the ordinance. Go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
No, I was not.
Okay. Counselor Gunderson, did you have anything?
You want to talk about it, we can talk, I don't have much to say.
Have anything to talk about relation to the budget? Counselor Sundin?
Specific, I don't know. See where the conversation goes.
Okay, so I spent some time on the, not the general ledger, but the trial balance on really going through the funds for, you know, to see if there was any red flags on where we could tighten the belt and reduce costs and things that maybe we should potentially look for and possibly fix. And so I want to talk about those things that I identified publicly. I already talked about my, the way that I broke down this budget with the 92 million, the general fund being about 13% of that. And then, you know, go from there. But some of the things that I noticed when I was going through here was on, I agree wholeheartedly. My opinion has been on like how we've got here is, you know, the ARP funds using the COVID money, using one-time revenues. I think those should be just for contingencies and to go into our reserve, but we can't control what has happened in the past. We can only control what we can do going forward, clearly. I want to talk about police overtime because that's in the budget year over year. Started looking at fiscal year 2024. We have, and if you're okay with this, Chief Smith, I want to talk about it. The police overtime at 367,000. These are like really, I think, pretty close to accurate numbers. 226 versus our budget of 300,000. So we're over like 67,000, 67 plus thousand. One FTE for police is between 190 and 200,000 from what I got from Gloria. So if we would have filled the vacancy, obviously there's a cost saving there, probably 130,000 roughly. Fiscal year 2024, the police overtime, 525,432. The budget was 395,000 approximately. So over 130,000, 432. Granted, my numbers could be off a few dollars. But still looking at a FTE, we had 4 open positions, I believe. That was you know, a general cost savings of probably $60,000. So I wanted to talk about overtime first, because that's what's also being put out there is like, you know, the police budget being 50%, but also the overtime. But I think we need to look at what we had for open positions versus what an FTE would cost, because it looks really bad. I'm going to be honest, when it looks like mismanagement of funds, when like not budgeting correctly, not mismanagement of funds, when you know, you have that much overtime. But in reality, if the FTEs would have been here, it's actually been a cost savings on not having those positions. I don't know if you could speak to that. Is that, am I accurate? Okay.
That's correct. With the open full-time positions that were funded, you know, we're not paying PERS benefits for those 4 open positions as well. That's something else to take into consideration. So the way to look at it, 4 positions, yeah, we're over budget on our overtime budget, but we're also not paying for full-time employees.
We have been, and I don't know if you're able to answer this, because of the MOU being signed in September 13th of 2024 for 20-hour call out, would we have been in a better financial situation for budget overtime if in fact we would have not been working voluntarily overtime this entire time for 18 months? Have you done any cost analysis? I didn't break it down.
I would have to break that down to answer your question.
I don't know what that answer is, so I'd be curious to know that as well. Also, fiscal year 2026, year to date through January, 320,813 approximately. Again, I don't want to be called a big fat liar or anything. My numbers could be off like a few dollars versus a budget of 300,000. So we're over 20,000, almost 21,000. We have 2 open positions right now. Okay. And we have like 5 months left in that. So the overtime budget, I think we need to do a better job explaining it. If in fact we have it, because it does not translate well at all when we're, you know, looks like 500, well, we are 520,000 over, but if we have open FTE positions, we're actually more financially better off.
Correct.
Okay, and then also I'm gonna table the financial services for a second, because I spent quite a bit of time on the police budget as well. The report writing is another thing that I noticed, because I think it's kind of it was one of those volatile things that I saw. Fiscal year 2024, the report writing system, I don't know the name of it, but it was like 309,153. Again, I'm not going to just keep saying it, but my numbers I think are pretty close versus a budget of 80,000. So we're over 229,153. And so digging into this, I want to make sure that I understand that this is accurate. When that police writing system, it was because we had to get it because the software was no longer going to support our system that we had. Is that correct?
Yes, the system that we're currently utilizing is utilized by multiple agencies, and it's housed with the Portland Police Bureau, and that system is no longer going to be accessible to us shortly.
Okay, so the agreement originally was that St. Helens Columbia County Sheriff's Office and Scappoose were all supposed to do a three-way cost share with this.
Yes,
At the last minute, Scappoose pulled out.
correct.
So we now are basically just doing a cost share with CCSO.
Correct.
But we actually are responsible for it, so we get reimbursed by CCSO.
Yes.
So this right here, whoever did the budget in 2024 just maybe had an error in the budget where we didn't account for the entirety of the system that we were gonna be responsible before reimbursement.
I think there's a couple different factors. One of this was, I think Scappoose withdrawing from the project after committing presented an issue. And I'm not certain whether or not they factored in the reimbursements that we would receive from the sheriff's office.
And then in 2025, the report writing was 21,407-ish, and then budgeted 84,000, so it was under budget, so it seems like that was like maybe a confusion in budgeting again or something like on that.
As it was explained to me, there was a carryover cost from one year to the next. And so I believe it was some inaccurate budget forecasting.
Okay, and then 2026, we have 184,985 versus a budget of 86, so we're over 98,985. I don't know if this is, because this was 25, 26, if this was another budgeting. I just want to make, my point is, I identified it on the trial balance. I want to understand why we have an overage or underage, and I want to understand a mitigation method that has been put in place so that we don't have these type of issues.
The last figure you quoted, I believe the reason why it appears that we're double over is because that does not factor in the reimbursement from the Columbia County Sheriff's Office. We'll split the cost 50-50 with them.
Okay. And is this gonna be an ongoing thing that's gonna be continuing in our budget going forward? Cause that's gonna be part of it's part of this general budget here. So what is our obligation going forward with this report writing system?
So once we have the servers and the software and the equipment set up and we go live, we should have a stable, essentially a stable user fee every single year that's going to be shared between the sheriff's office and St. Helens Police. What you're seeing right now is we're essentially building the infrastructure for the new records management system that we're going to utilize for probably close to a decade, if not more.
Okay. Thank you for that. And then also fleet, if we can talk about that, because I also identified that and I want to have those conversations. So in the police fleet, it looked like it was under budget in fiscal year 2026. So it was kind of weird based on the actual behavior. So 2025, I had the enterprise fleet ended about 287,000 versus the budget of 310,000. So that seemed about roughly right on plan. But then 2026, it was budgeted for 95,000 and then year to date is 144,413-ish. So it's already over. I don't know if can you speak to this fleet management program at all?
So the enterprise lease management program is a cost-effective way for us to essentially purchase vehicles and normally in larger agencies like Washington County or Portland, you'll have a robust public works department that can do maintenance on the vehicles on an ad hoc basis as needed. Unfortunately, we don't have the infrastructure here with the city of St. Helens. So the lease program allows us to purchase vehicles through the enterprise lease program and recycle them roughly every 60 to 70,000 miles. I think one of the challenges that you're bringing up with the budgeting was the previous administration did not do accurate budget forecasting on what our costs for fleet would be. And I think you eloquently pointed out that our fleet costs differed wildly from one year to the next. So when I took over as chief, one of the first things we did was we did a complete fleet audit of our vehicles. And one of the other factors was there were vehicles ordered that were not communicated to our city finance director. Lieutenant Treat and I immediately began selling vehicles that were no longer in use and reducing the size of our fleet. And that is actually still in progress right now with the intent of stabilizing our fleet costs and bringing those costs down.
So the fleet actually helps because otherwise you're just replacing those vehicles versus if we bought a vehicle every 2 to 3 years and then we had to sell a surplus, we're gonna get actually less money.
Not only that, but you have to maintain the vehicles too.
Okay, those were two of the items that jumped out to me that were kind of not red flags, but ones that I identified. I wanted more explanation. Does anybody, before I go into a different topic, does anybody have anything they want to ask, any additional questions? What about 8-hour schedules versus the 8-hour versus 10 hours? Can you speak to that so that we have some communication?
Well, I've certainly worked 8-hour schedules as a police officer in my career, and they're horrific. And I'll explain a variety of reasons why. Number one, if you're running 3 8-hour shifts, You have essentially no shift overlap, which is a major issue because that leads to overtime costs. The reason being is if you have officers that are 8-hour shifts, when the next shift comes on duty, there is no overlap between the two. Now, unlike other professions, we might be in the middle of a critical incident, might have 5 or 6 critical police reports. We all have body worn cameras where this digital footage needs to be tagged. All of that takes place over your shift overlap, meaning that when the next shift comes on, there's a couple hours for the outgoing shift to get their affairs in order so they can go home on time and not charge the taxpayer. It's also a major issue, especially when you work night shift. I've worked 8-hour graveyard shifts as a police officer, and it is extremely difficult on the officer's family life. It's very difficult because we have a lot of times court on our days off, and if you run an 8-hour night shift with 2 days off a week, you essentially get 1 day off if you're lucky. And my retort is if 8-hour shifts are the answer to staffing crises across the United States right now, why are they not the standard shift at police departments? It's for all the reasons that I just described. 10-hour shifts provide the sufficient shift overlap that you need to get your work completed, and it overall, I believe, mitigates overtime.
Chief, I have a question on that. You brought up something I completely forgot about. Those are those mandatory court appearances that the officers have to like to testify in court. Can you speak to that a little bit? Like how often that happens? Like, because in order for these prosecutions to go forward, they have to be there.
Yes.
It's mandatory. I don't know if it's mandatory. I'm assuming it's mandatory, and that's just good policing, right?
Yes, if you're an active, proactive police officer, you're going to have to appear in court. Challenges with shift work is that your graveyard and swing shift officers are going to be coming in essentially for them in the middle of the night to provide testimony at grand jury, which takes place in our county 2 days a week. But there's also the municipal court where we have cases that are referred there as well. And so that's another factor to consider.
So a lot of these officers may be coming in on their days off or staying late or coming in early, depending on the shift, to attend those court hearings, correct?
That's correct. And think of it, if you're working 10-hour shifts anyway and it falls on a work day, the likelihood is you're going to be appearing in court during your work.
Could be 2 to 4 hours right there.
It's 2 to 4 hours right there. I have just found from experience, having worked as a police manager in 2 different police organizations now, that when you run an organization on 8-hour shifts, it will inevitably lead to overtime costs. It's just you're paying the overtime a different way. And the other factor is that there's a morale issue to consider too with your staff. 10s are very clearly the preferred schedule for law enforcement in the United States.
So you also that even something de minimis, I'm not gonna say de minimis because sometimes when people speed through like school zones and stuff like that, it's a big ticket, that could be, but like in general, but like traffic tickets too, if they don't show up and somebody's appealed that, they get thrown out, right?
Correct.
So it could be, and that affects us getting funds as well from the municipal court.
It's still a required court appearance that officers have to attend.
So they're subpoenaed to go to it?
Yes.
Oh,
So municipal court appearances, circuit court appearances, grand
Okay.
jury appearances, trial appearances, all those are mandatory for the officers to attend.
any other questions on that?
No, thank you.
Okay. Counselor Sundin? Okay, then I wanted to jump over into another thing. And I don't know if that was the intent of today, but we're talking about the budget, the general service fee. So I just want to talk about these items because these are things that whether we've addressed them or not. But also on general professional fees. So for fiscal year 2025, we had $220,666 versus a budget of 80,000. So an overage of about 140,660. And I believe these to be legal expenses outside of insurance. So things that are tendered to like CIS or our insurance. Is that correct, John? So these are legal expenditures.
Correct.
Okay, and then 2026 services, professional services, 194,925 versus a budget of 50,000. So already over 144,925. And again, this is not related, legal related costs that are for claims that have been tendered to our insurance. So these are legal. Okay, in 2026, we have professional services for the police for 138,463 approximately versus a budget of 40,000 over, so 98,463. So the first two were general services and then the last one was police. So almost 500,000 in legal fees that are sitting there that are not related to claims that have been tendered to our insurance. So then the question is, where are all these legal fees? Where are they coming from? And is there a way to tighten that up? And also, so that's a concern of mine that we have. It's like $552,227.73-ish. So could be related to like, closing of visit, doing like contract stuff or something, but I think that is just a lot of legal expenses, right? In my opinion. So I think that I don't know what we can do to address that, but it was a red flag that I saw when I was going through. And then also, like it'd be my opinion, like we see this as council one time a year instead of, like budget season. And if there was a way to have, like when our finance director is doing her reviews, when she does her staff reports, like highlight if a department, regardless of what department it is, like they're going to be over budget, that there should be some type of red flag, right? That they're over budget, and then what is the mitigation method being put in place to try to ensure that it doesn't happen? I mean, I go back and I look what I lead accounts or the report writing, so there's explanation. We're gonna go out and we're gonna ask citizens, put this on the ballot and say, hey, give us our money, give the money. They want to know that we have gone through this. I believe they want to know that we've gone through this. We've looked at the finances. We've looked at where we're seeing issues, and then we have mitigation methods put in place to try to ensure that we're being financially or fiscally responsible with their money. And then, or our money, we pay them too. And then the last thing so I don't know if anybody, let me just say this before we talk about professional services, I guess, but when John was talking about the property taxes, and I started looking at where we are for the entire county, we're the 1.91% on the rates per 1,000 of assessed value. St. Helens is 1.91, Columbia City, I believe, is 2.03, Prescott is 2.46, Scappoose is 3.23, Vernonia 5.82, Clascanine 6.21, and Rainier 7.09. And we're at 1.91 as the county seat, trying to provide all of these services, the essential service between the police, the library, rec, all of those things that so many of our adults and citizens use. And we're trying to do it literally also on a shoestring budget. Because did you go through all the things that can go into this fund, John? As far as the general fund? Like we can't, it doesn't, the general fund she has it in the documents here. The general fund charges the internal general service fee to the other operating funds. So basically for any type of administrative things, but they have to actually be doing it, right? So if it's like billing for payroll for the library, billing for payroll for police, you can charge those.
Right,
Right.
and management of enterprise funds, also those expenses related to those costs are collected in those centers.
And the general fund is not supported by utility fees, grants, or system development charges. So we have a limited amount of things that actually fund the general service fee. It's pretty limited.
That is based on property tax,
It's measured
partially,
50 and 5. And
limited that.
so anyway,
Which I know you compared to the county, but if you compare it to the state too.
yes, we are like one of
Very,
the
very
lowest. But I was just trying to bring relevance to also here, like in our backyards and our neighbors, right? It's like we're trying to provide all these services. I think there is room for improvements on cost expenditures. There always is, but going through, and Counselor Hubbard, you went through the trial balance too, I believe, right?
Yes, it did.
Are you agreeing, or did you see anything
Pretty
different?
much you summed it up, what I saw. I think the glaring one was the legal expenses. And I don't know how to address that. It's obviously coming at us and you've got to defend ourselves. It's just a unfortunate time of people being so litigious every turn of this way that it's costing a lot of money. Really need to internally look at how we could reduce that, maybe by some changing the staff or something like that, but what you summed up was very accurate.
Does anybody, there's a few things that I didn't know, like, I mean, they're pretty low on here as well, but is there any other thoughts on that? Did you guys take a deep dive into the budget or?
Just one more holistic observation with the notion that property taxes, I pay my property taxes, that pays for everything. And when you really drill down on that and you look at what, you know, even 50% of the general fund budget is police. Well, property taxes don't even pay for half of the police budget. So there's some perspective there that people think that they cover a lot more than they really do. So, and that's why you're seeing communities going to these types of fees and levies and just trying to make ends meet with our Oregon's, you know, property tax limitations.
And Suzanne, I have no idea how you manage all of the programs that you do at the library for kiddos and adults alike, whether it's stuff for jobs or government related stuff or just after school stuff or programs with 8 staff. Like, you guys do a phenomenal job. I would have mentioned if I found something that I thought that was like, maybe we could talk about, but I didn't find anything when I went through the library. So
We run really lean, and right now we're 7 staff. I'm gonna be able to replace that position right now, that part-time position. So.
oh, well, nice job on that because I would have brought it up here if I saw something and I didn't see anything in there. So nice job. So I just wanted to be transparent about the issues that I personally saw when I was going through here. And it sounds like we have those mitigated. If I was going to, talk about or approve an ordinance, I want to make sure that I also, looked at all the departments and gave an opinion on what I thought, what I found and what I thought about it. So nobody has anything else? All right. You good? You don't have
I was just gonna say, I mean, moving forward, I'm hoping this will pass. I don't want to see anything cut. I think we should, like you mentioned, we should look at tightening our belt, seeing where we can save money. I think this is a good start forward. Looking at this and saying, okay, where do we need to do that? Right? And see what happens.
I think that the citizens are really thirsting for, staff can't talk or advocate, but I think they are really thirsting for a town hall too. I'm gonna come back to that. I did that live the other day. It had great interaction and people liked being able to ask questions. And a lot of people that I spoke to did not realize about how our budget is broke down. They thought the city was gonna be filing bankruptcy next week. They didn't understand the different funds. And it seemed like that was very much appreciated. I think we can do a better job in communicating and updating people where their money is going.
Education.
Yeah, the education piece I think is important. And there's not time to do a town hall prior to this because we need to get this on, but also afterwards, I think that's where the education piece comes in. So I still really would like to have one. I'm willing to do it. I think that there's a few people that can probably be pretty good moderators, but I think, and the staff can just give factual information if there's questions, right? Like yes, no questions on the budget, or it's not advocating if it's factual based on.
So especially if you're having a town hall just on budget issues and you're not even referencing the ordinance or the fee or anything, then that is a town hall that's related to factual information and the budget. Where we should talk more closely is if there's any information related to the fee and how staff can or cannot participate. The law does not allow city funds being used to advocate a political measure.
Understood. We'd have to be very careful, but I still think that people have a lot of questions, and for them to feel comfortable whether they want to vote on it or not, I think that those questions should be answered. I mean, like the simple one, does everybody have a car outside of that works outside of City Hall?
Absolutely not.
Okay, well, there's the answer, but some people think that that's the case and it's misinformation that, or just unknown information that is going to change an opinion on how somebody votes. So I think it's important that we do that. You have anything else, John?
Covered it pretty thoroughly.
Long-winded as usual, right? I did spend quite a bit of time on it. I spent many, many hours going through that to see what we could look at, but I also still think it comes back into the staff report to make sure that there's any identifying markers if something is going over budget.
Well, and we have to take preemptive actions of not filling positions, just no matter what happens, we want to align. City's not gonna go bankrupt in the general fund. We will adjust services to align with the revenues. Might be as drastic as that might be, so.
Am I correct, John, that this has been, I mean, you've been looking at this for a while now. It's not, you've been.
It's coming,
right?
yeah, we've.
Can we get away with not hiring for this position? Are we gonna be okay?
Right.
And so you have been kind of.
And
doing
it
that,
comes with
right?
consequences too.
Sure, sure.
Our capacity is diminished, our ability to go do grants and.
But you've been watching it, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
So those are like some of the main concerns I have is that on the building side and the planning side, right? On like, we want people to open businesses, we want people to be participating, but permits, the delay in permits, it's not fear mongering, it's a reality. If we have to cut it, we're going to have to cut services. Suzanne, what kind of services off the top of your head are we gonna have to cut at library if it doesn't pass? Cause you're not a fear mongering person, so can you tell us the reality of what we're looking at if in fact this does not pass from the library's perspective?
A couple of things that we've been talking about is having to have shorter hours, at the, shorter open hours, fewer open hours. Along with that, programs, it could affect the makerspace available, how the makerspace is open. It would reduce the number of items that we could add to the collection, both because we would have fewer dollars to spend, but also if we had fewer staff, then we would not be able to process those items and prepare them for use. Those are a few of the things that we've been talking about seriously.
Okay. And the rec center, and you guys, you play such an integral role with our littles out there in the community. I know spending last week, I went to 2 different schools. Panda Express, by the way, I'm just gonna point out for Columbia City, that was the top food choice there too. I don't know what it is, like, hey, any entrepreneurs, if you want to bring something here, Panda Express is what McBride and Columbia City want. Anyway, but though there were so many kids in that after school program that was filling that gap from their parents that were working from that period of time, that's going to be a pretty big impactful hit too. So it's just the reality of what we're looking at. Anyway. Okay. I don't know if we need to belabor this anymore. So where are we at with, we have the final reading. If I recall correctly from what Ashley said last time, we need to choose one of the ordinance, 3321 or 3322. And then whichever one we make a motion and vote on, then we need to vote on the resolution for that applicable one. Correct?
That's correct. So I think if in the end of your deliberation, once you finish your deliberation, you would move to the ordinance and you can call to ask if anybody wants to make a motion to pass. And you would start with ordinance number 3321. And if anybody does, you move forward. And if not, then you would move to the next ordinance number 3322. But any questions there?
You do a fabulous job of explaining.
We don't need to vote one down. If we choose one, that's it.
If somebody makes a motion to approve it and then somebody seconds it, then you would vote on that. And
We don't have to bring the other one up.
then what I would say is, so if for example, if someone wanted to make a motion and second 3321 and vote on it and it passed, then you can ask if anybody wants to make a motion. You would want to ask if anyone wants to make a motion on 3322 and seconds it. And then if so, it would, if you have voted on it, it would presumably wouldn't pass. I wouldn't recommend passing both ordinances.
Right.
But yeah, you
We
should,
don't have to vote one down either.
no, you don't have to vote one down.
Okay, so are we there yet?
I mean, unless you want me to keep talking.
No, not really.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2066. I need to read the whole thing.
Oh, wait.
No.
I
Ordinance.
have to read it first.
Wait,
Okay.
you gotta do the ordinance first.
This one first.
So we just have to read it.
Well, you're
Yeah,
not,
we're
you're
gonna
doing here.
motion.
That was the motion in the
The
resolution.
next order of minutes would be ordinance number 3321, and someone would make a motion and read the full title of the ordinance. And you can see if you have a second.
Okay, I will do that. I will make a motion to adopt ordinance number 3321, an ordinance to establish chapter 13.34 general services fee if approved by the voters at a citywide election of $35.30 per month per E EDU.
Doesn't look like,
And then you can call for a second.
well, I assume that somebody would have said a second if they want to do it.
So if there's no second, then
The next one,
I'm still
Then
thinking.
there- yeah.
Still contemplating. Yeah. So that,
Actually, you could call for a second just to have discussion, right? Let me second it just for discussion.
you can call for a second, yeah, and then have
I'm
discussion.
gonna second it.
If they
And then
wanted to
was-
back out, they
yeah.
can withdraw theirs.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, I'm gonna second it. I wanna have discussion. The 35-30 gets us to 20% of the reserve. And the 24 gets us to, is it 10% of the reserves? I just wanna make sure, cause I couldn't recall.
The plan is to still get to 20%, but there's deeper cuts.
Okay, so it's still
Still
cuts.
can be some service reductions to get there, and it's likely, and there's not a lot of the material and services, but it's more, labor is our biggest cost and people, and it's gonna be less hours, layoffs, furloughs, that kind of thing. Or less days perhaps. If there's, neither approved, then it's gonna be more of each.
Like I have conflicting feelings about it because I go back to what Gloria said, where it's like, she cautioned us based on my recollection at the last one, that like we go out and it's like, you got like one chance at the apple, right? So you gotta get it, cause you're not gonna be able to go back out. So are we going to have enough to bridge a gap of from now to when we have enough additional recurring revenue that can be created in the city? But if my other feeling is like, I think that there's a middle ground of tightening the belt a bit more. I just don't know, going through the trial balance and looking at it, where besides the legal fees, like really where we can have a lot of cuts. And that's my concern. Like going through it, I didn't see like if it were my business, right, where I could make a lot of cuts. So that concerns me without really having impact to a lot of the services.
I think we're asking the public to, take one or the other one. The second one would be a give and take, which might be more palatable for some if they knew that. Means that they're gonna be paying the 24, but also the city's gonna work hard to try and work within that newer program.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I just don't see where like it's going to have to be some pretty significant cuts on $24. It's gonna have to be significant cuts, and I look at the planning. I mean, right now, like I can't tell you how many people are upset about the business license fee that have gone up like whatever 1,200%. So like
Yeah,
yeah, it's been an outcry of that.
and this is on top of people that have those
Well, I
kind of.
want to address that, but that's on a separate subject. I think we need to reevaluate that.
My thoughts are kind of right along with Counselor Hubbard, is that we've already got a $10 public safety fee. We've got, it's a lot of money for a lot of people, especially we've got a lot of low income families in our community, and it's gonna hit them hard. So it is a lot of money. And I think as we've talked about, there are places where we can tighten the belt. I know it's not gonna be an easy conversation, but it shows that there's some give and take there, that we're doing our part. The 35 gets us what we want, just like we've been having it. I don't know that we can afford things the way we've had it, so I don't think it's a bad idea to tighten things up.
Well, I mean, I think, like I said, even on the legal fees alone, that's a lot. Like almost,
Some of those are very challenging to control.
right.
Yeah, you've got to be defending yourself or.
I mean, lawfare's hard, right? So it's like you have that piece of it that you just don't know. But I think that there's a way to look at that. There's some some stuff.
It's only a $10 difference and that doesn't sound like much, but it adds up.
I mean, it's just crappy in general. Like, it's just crappy that we're here in the first place, even talking about this. It's unfortunate and it's,
I don't feel bad about making the decision because we are not going to make the final decision. We're just putting it.
yeah, I understand, but I think it's bad that it's come to this, that we're having to put this in the voters' hands in general to have to make these decisions based on what, on my personal opinion is maybe we could have mitigated this many years ago. And I'm not begrudging, I'm just saying that one-time revenues and all those things, that's just, we're gonna make a lot of cuts right now where maybe they could have been like less painful as, as needed financially.
We were left with a lot of issues that are hard to deal with and it costs money. But then again, I think of the citizens, a lot of additional monies don't have it, and then are we going to find a lot of the ones that can't pay it, then you've got to put a fee together to pay who can't pay it.
I wish Gloria was here to talk more about that program through Community Action Team, because I'd like to hear more about that, how that would work.
Well, I can tell what we've done in the past, as far as we took a percentage of the late fees. And we can't give a direct discount. We have to you'd be subject to suspension and debarment on federal grants if you offer counts to a special class. So we have to be careful that the workaround is that you take some of your another source of fees and put it towards the same cause. And that's where we work with the action team to steer some revenues to them to help distribute to those who need it most. So.
Yeah. Well, I guess the way I've kind of looked at it is the 35 gets us what we want. The 24 kind of forces us to get what we need.
I mean, I'd say something, but I agree with everything everybody else has said. I'm in the same spot.
Yeah, it's tough.
I don't have anything else to say.
Yeah. I don't want to see library cut. I don't want to see rec cut. Like, I want to see like somebody dedicated to child pornography, child exploitation, child trafficking. I want to see that. I'm not in support of like more patrol. Personally, I'm supportive that dedicated service. I think we have a problem in this community. And they kind of are all intertwined. You know, if somebody is at the rec center for 300 hours, that's 300 hours and somebody is not being victimized. It's not fear mongering, it's reality. Crime has happened. Calls for service have happened. 110 cross reports have happened. That's the reality, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. It is happening in this community. But I also agree on tightening the belt, so. Like I spent the time going through the budget to see where.
Same professional services, legal fees was a big red flag for me. But again, what do you do about that?
I don't know, $552,227.73. 2025.
We'll say going back to being on the budget committee before being on council. I looked at this. I mean, it's been coming, but I don't have an answer. We just don't have the revenue coming in to support the services we've got. We don't. And it's been a problem. And I don't know what to do about that. Be creative. We could, have the subdivision pop up, but we get to solve the waterfront and get that on the tax rolls. It's just not gonna happen right now. It's gonna take time.
Not that it helps, but just doing research, we're not the only city going through this. There's cities all over the state that are going through this. There's dozens of cities that use fees on the utility bill. And again, very few, if any of them that I found made the decision to put it out to voters. So the fact that we did, I think, says a lot. So something that we could have done on our own without asking for any input, and we didn't do that.
It's the right thing to do.
Some of them are as high as $80. There's $80, there's $45, there's $10. So it's all over the board. I don't like any of them. I'd rather not have any fees, but you want to live in a city where you have a library and where you have a rec center and where you have parks to visit, then it's at a cost.
Parks and Trails Commission will no longer be supported either, right? So that will go away.
They have to do it themselves.
Yeah, we're pretty thin right now, and there's some tipping points here, not even supporting meetings like this. Staff to be able to support those, maybe we end up doing less council meetings as well.
You have a question really quick. It's kind of random, but you know, the meeting at 4, I actually didn't really understand why it actually was at 4 either. I mean, we do general work session at 3, which is fine. No, it doesn't be anybody's fault. I mean, like, it would be nice to have more, like, there's public comment, but like relevant to this actual topic that we're talking about, that we could have gotten more information from. But if we're also having meetings later in the evening, are you guys not paid overtime?
I'm not, but
You're not?
Lisa is.
So there's overtime clause.
Putting meetings together and doing the minutes and breaking it down and.
The administrative function. It's not your fault. You're
We're pretty
employee
efficient, but it's.
of the year.
I just want to take the blame for it because I'm the one that wanted it so that we could eliminate having to work late and, since we already do this for 2 or 3 times a month.
By the way, congratulations again on being employee here. It's fabulous.
You have that planning meeting after this.
Yeah, we have that joint planning meeting after. So, okay.
So ultimately, you would like to think that putting it in the evening would make a difference, but we've had lots of meetings at 6, at 7, and we get the same turnout as we do it. Or so.
The same comments. Yeah. Okay, so we're back to this. So the question is, do we want to do ordinance 3321 or want more discussion on it?
Again, I don't like either one, but I'm leaning towards 24.
So are we ready to put it up for a vote?
So you could also, if the maker can withdraw the motion, if you didn't want to vote on this, or you could put it for a vote, because there is a second. And if,
I just like the votes.
okay.
I don't know why. It just feels clean to me.
Okay, good.
So. Are we ready? Do we want to discuss more or do we want to put it up for a vote?
Vote, Russ? Ready for a vote? Vote. Ready for a vote? Sure. I think we're ready for. a vote
Okay.
down here.
So we have a motion second, Counselor Sundin,
No.
Counselor Hubbard, Counselor Gunderson.
Yes.
That of a tie.
Doesn't approve.
A tie.
You're a tie? Because if I vote yes, it's a tie.
Not a majority, so.
Die. I'm gonna vote yes too then. Not then, but I think that. I think I owe it to staff. I think we owe it to staff to try to continue on to provide the services and for the citizens.
That's where I was at. Let's see. Now to the next one.
So ordinance number 3321 passed.
It's a tie.
That's a tie.
Tie. Oh, the tie.
Doesn't pass, yeah.
So ordinance number 3321. An ordinance to establish 13.34 general services fee for $35.30 tie, which is fail. Okay.
Oxymoron, isn't it?
So then I would make a motion to approve ordinance number 3322, an ordinance to establish chapter 13.34 general service fee, if approved by the voters at a citywide election, would be $24 up per month per EDU.
Second.
Do you even need to have any more discussion on it? So Harvard, do you need more discussion? Counselor Sundin? So we have a motion second, Counselor Sundin?
Aye.
Counselor Hubbard? Counselor Gunderson? And I will be an aye as well. Okay, so that means 2-2 is, that ordinance passed, so now we go down to for resolution number 2067. So if somebody wants to make.
You can, just for the agenda, you can move to resolution number 2066 and ask if anybody has a motion.
Okay.
I'd recommend not making a motion on this since,
I was gonna skip it all the way.
okay.
Does anybody want to make a motion on resolution 2066? Negative. Okay, somebody want to make a motion on resolution number 20?
I will make a motion to, on resolution number. I will make a motion to adopt resolution number 2067, a resolution of the city of St. Helens City Council referring to the voters of the city of St. Helens at the May 19th, 2026 election. Ballot measure authorizing adoption of chapter 13.14 general service fee of $24 a month per EDU.
Discussion. I like discussion. So like one of the big factors for me, again, on this is the legal fees. Because that is over $500,000 that our citizens are paying legal fees, and that's not all of it. It's actually like $650,000. So approximately, so like a big deal to me is trying to figure out like how to mitigate that. Again, that's outside of things that are tendered to our insurance. These are things that are coming out of our general fund, our citizens are paying for. And so like a big piece of this is like, that's a lot of money that can go back to staffing and services. And I think also we gotta dig deeper into that. And I can agree to 24 if we are going to spend also time to figure out how we can reduce those costs if possible.
It'd be helpful to see that broken down further and really see where all of that is going.
Also, we could make some decisions without going directly to the attorney to make decisions for us, so we could make the decisions and then the legal. They can dot the i's and cross the t's. In some cases.
And it's hard with like, lawfare and that type of stuff. We have to be really careful, but I'm just saying, I think it's worth a further conversation to put in front of council to have a discussion about the legal fees. Like, that's a lot of money for, again, over $600,000. Almost, it's really almost close to 700,000, really. And that's a lot of money. That's a lot of staff, is that not, Suzanne? That's a lot of staff.
Yeah.
700,000.
That's
So,
most.
some of it's necessary, but,
And the departments of several budgets.
exactly, and the entire, so that's for me a big factor of voting for the 24. I think that it would. Need to look at that. That's my take.
I'll say again, it's not ideal. I don't think either option was ideal, but it's not ideal for the citizens. It's not good for us, but it's what it is, I guess.
Well, I don't think we can stop trying to bring in revenue either. I think that that's the other piece. That's how we can help staff. And that's how we can help departments is work on the conceptual ideas and the ideas we have right now to start bringing in revenue. I think that that's where this council can help is like be more like strategizing to how we're gonna get that. Businesses are not just gonna want to come here, right? And build businesses or things like that. We have got to use our own assets to create revenue. I think we need to focus on that.
And I don't think this gets us to where we want to be, but I I think overall puts us in a better position because we've got our reserves built back up and it gets us moving in the right direction.
I hope somebody's listening for that Panda Express.
Clearly, the kiddos want it, man. Unanimous. It's awesome. So fun. It's the orange chicken. It's the orange chicken from Panda Express too. I feel like I need to have it. I don't know. Okay, so we had a motion second, Counselor Sundin.
Aye.
Counselor Howard. Counselor Gunderson.
Aye.
And I will be an aye as well. And I think that that's all we had.
So earlier we heard that there's gonna be two budgets created. Two budgets was picking one of these options, so Gloria being working on $24 option as the one option and the other option of having. Should this not be successful, so.
And can we get on an agenda for discussion? Things that I feel like we should be discussing how we can additionally save some money.